Welcome back to the NFL Alumni Lounge. And right now, we have a guest who has changed the game in entertainment, in sports, really is living everybody's dream, Mr. Ronnie Singh. Ronnie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show here.
No worries.
Where your life is now, like I said, you're like, everyone's like, you know what, if I go to sleep and I dream of what my dream day and job is, it's Ronnie's. Where did it start for you? When you're in high school, what did you think you were going to do with your life?
When I was in high school, I was hoping to be a basketball player. That didn't end up working out. But I mean, it always came back to sports for me. I jumped around my major so many times. Like I was interested in computers for a while. My first actual real job was working on web design, and I made a lot of money actually at my first job, before our first job. Because I was really good at web design, but I wasn't really passionate about it. And then I told you earlier, I went to law school, and I worked for a couple law firms and really hated it. Like, I work 80 hours a day, which now I do all the time, but I'm sorry, 80 hours a day, 80 hours a week, which now I do all the time. But it was just a passion that wasn't there for me. But it always came back to sports. Even, like I was trying to do sports web design, and then I wanted to be a sports agent like Jerry Maguire, and it was always like that for me. So that's where I wanted to kind of be. It's hard to make money working in sports because there's such a passion. So many people want to do it, but obviously in the digital space, and carving out a niche and really working hard has led me to this very kind of one-of-one situation, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did gaming fall for you? Was that always your way to blow off steam, get your mind at ease?
Yeah, I mean, I have all the original Nintendo systems still. I used to game just like everybody else. Me and my best friend, actually, when we were kids, would play NBA Jam, the original one, like 40 times a day. So I was very competitive even back then with video games. Obviously into the Marios of the world and the Zeldas, like that was my generation. And so it was always a good like distraction. And I'm sure this story has been told a lot, with people making success in the gaming industry. But it's funny. My parents used to get so mad at me gaming and like thinking I was wasting my time. And now I'm like, oh, that worked out okay.
It worked out, it worked out.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing it now. Like, it's amazing how much gaming has become this phenomenon where a lot of people are making money, whether it's esports or making content on YouTube or whatever it may be. There's such an interest in gaming that, there's a lot of ways to make a career out of it.
It's a whole industry, man. Now we see these video game team franchises. I remember about 4 years ago at the Pro Bowl, they did the first big Madden Bowl, and you had people from all around the world. And then last year, Radio Row, I was amazed at how many NFL superstars came, did interviews with us, and then they were giddy like little kids to go and meet their favorite gamers and play 2K with their gamer friends and play Call of Duty, all these games. Does that amaze you to see like how athletes treat the gamer? It's incredible.
Well, yeah, back in the day, I mean, gaming was kind of nerdy, right? Like they were two very separate worlds, but now a lot of these guys have grown up on it. And I think games like 2K are a big reason why, because we created this like kind of cultural experience where it's cool to game, but and live the life of a basketball player in the game, because there's so many extensions to that. There's fashion, there's music, there's all of these other extensions that you wouldn't think of normally in just what our basketball video game used to be when it was just about basketball, right? Now you live the life of a basketball player in our My Career mode. And I think that a lot of people aspire for things like that, right? Even NFL players, I work with so many of them, there's so many NFL players who are a fan of 2K. And I always ask them, I'm like, why do you guys play 2K over the football product? And they're like, it's a break from, my normal routine. And I think that there's something to that, and that they get to live out the life of a single person as opposed to an entire team, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love points there for Ronnie for saying, or the football product. You got to love that.
I don't know what it's called. So
we don't know the name of it. So So, you've been a guy, like when we look at what you've done for the brand and how you work with athletes, I think you were ahead of the curve in seeing athletes not only as an athlete, you saw them as people that could move culture. You saw how music, entertainment, sports all kind of collided in one
Mhm.
place. Was that something you always recognized since you were a kid, or was that something when you got the role you kind of, developed?
So when I started at 2K, social media wasn't even really a thing, but I saw that people were being successful as individual entities. And then at the same time, the NBA was doing a phenomenal job of telling the stories of their players. Like, yeah, obviously everybody knew about MJ, and he's probably the original person where everybody got behind MJ as opposed to the Bulls or Chicago or and then or the Showtime Lakers, right? It wasn't about these teams anymore, but it was about the stars. Maybe it was Magic and Larry was really the first time that happened. But regardless, the NBA was ahead of it. And I think that they leaned into it so much with the storytelling of their individual stars. And there's more stars in the NBA than ever before. But that's because you know them, a lot more. You know about their lives. You know about Aisha and Steph. You know about LeBron's family. You know about and his obviously his political beliefs. You know a lot more about their lives than what's happens on the court. And our marketing went the same way, but in terms of like social media influencing and like working with influencers in general, it was really about like trying to identify these characters. And that's sort of why I came to fruition too. Like I was this guy that really loved basketball, really loved our product 2K, and got to talk about it just as a super fan that just happened to work for the company. And I think that people like to connect with people more. So I think it was just one of those authentic things, and it probably wouldn't be very easy to recreate now that there's so many influencers in the space. But our ability to work with athletes and let them get involved in the conversation while they were building their own brand was such a big part of our marketing strategy. The ratings phenomenon is probably the biggest indicator of that, right? Like, why do these guys care about a singular number in a video game that's attributed to them? It's ultimately another thing for them to be competitive about, but whenever they talk about it, it shines nicely onto our product. And so those kind of mechanisms to delve into culture, whether you mentioned fashion, music, which I've spent a lot of time on in the past few years, but even going back to ratings and like trying to be part of the daily conversation was very important to us.
What was the weirdest thing? I'm sure you've gotten some weird text message, phone calls, and interactions with guys trying to shake down for extra points on their ratings. What was the weirdest one you ever had?
There's been a lot of examples, a lot of them. I mean, you could probably Google this, but check out the John Wall thing a few years ago. That was interesting. That one was interesting. No, I mean, there's been a lot over the course of the years, but again, I think it's just so fascinating that these guys care so much about this number that their play controls, right? Like we have a dynamic roster system that if they want to go out and ball out, we'll change their ratings based on their performance. So for them to care about this thing that's in their control and talk about it with such a passion is super fascinating to me.
It's incredible. And, it's fascinating for us to see, like you said, man, a lot of people could have been given the job you were given, but I don't think anybody would have taken it to where you have and built the relationships the way you have. You do. It's almost like you have like an agent. You do have like an agent mind too, as well. You see you courtside with countless celebrities,
I think that background, all my various backgrounds, just like everybody else, it helps shape your personality. I think, I first of all learned a lot about having thick skin, and like making sure that I realized that anytime somebody talked about our product, no matter what they said, they were an engaged consumer, right? Like they wanted to play it, they were interested in it, they were so passionate about it. That's always stuck with me. And then, I think that some of this legal background has helped kind of shape the way that I think about the relationships and making sure that there's mutual benefit for celebrity, player, and brand, right? And so shaping that over the years and getting better at it has been a massive interest of mine. Sorry, did I answer your question?
Oh, what's been the most surreal, moment for you during this career?
Oh man, I don't know. There's been
You're
so
pinching
many.
yourself all the time.
There's always something going on. It's been tough with COVID, obviously. Like you don't get that daily physical interaction with people, which I, get a lot of energy with being such an extrovert. But man, there's so many. I mean, the last was so I played in this celebrity game the last 2 years. Obviously, there's no All Star this year, so I will not get to do a three-peat at least this year. And last year when I played, I had met Michael Jordan a couple times, and obviously he was my favorite player growing up. Who can't say that, in my generation? And but he, like his son, Marcus, pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, my dad wants to talk to you after your game," and I'm like, "What?" So he pulls me aside and he pulls me into this area, and Michael's there. He's like, he's breaking down my game, and I'm like, this is so weird, like talking about my actual basketball game from the greatest of all time and getting like pointers and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is going on here? So there's been a lot of moments like that. I get to work with some really fascinating people. A lot of the work that I've done with Make-A-Wish has been kind of like that really gives me a lot of joy and opportunity to like purpose-driven, platform building, I guess. There's so many examples throughout, but I really enjoy and I miss it, like getting to work with my coworkers at 2K, because there's just so many good ideas that are thrown around. We really have really turned this little engine that could into just a really huge cultural icon. And I miss those interactions in the office, making those things happen. It's tough. COVID's been horrible for everyone, but you also miss your coworkers and stuff too.
I'll tell you what, I've gained more of an appreciation for 2K during COVID too, because it's
that's true.
Through, man, you really have. Yeah. But you're at the forefront of a culture movement. It's incredible. Now behind you got quite the collection. What pair of shoes behind you right there do you put at the top of your mountain?
It changes for me every few months because something new will come out that I kind of glean onto. I mean, I got some of the old OG like Jordans, but lately I've been wearing the heck out of the Ben & Jerry's. They were like the shoe of the year last year. They're actually right.
See them over there.
They're right there.
Yeah.
So I love those. Those are. I'm very like, and I do a lot of stuff with fashion, as you know. I like really loud clothing items and stuff. So my shoe taste would probably be the same.
Oh, you could let us borrow those chunky dunks anytime, Ronnie.
I mean, I don't know if they fit anybody. I'm a size 15, so that
forget it.
Might be challenging.
You were made for the NBA, my man.
Exactly. Just a little talent short, I think.
So you got something really cool where our worlds are running into each other. Here you're involved in. The Fan Controlled Football League just kicked off a couple weeks ago, and fans are loving it. I'm personally loving it. What do you think? And what did you think when the concept first was presented to you?
Well, so to be honest, the first time I got presented to me, I'm like, why do they want me to be part of this? Was one of the first people that they asked at. And I talked to Richard Sherman, who I'm friends with, and Quavo, and some of the other owners in the league. I'm like, hey, what is this? What exactly is this? But then the first time they pitched me, they told me about a world I really understood, which was fans are literally dictating the plays of the actions on the field. And as somebody that's in community and gaming, I totally got it. I'm like, okay, these fans can control the action, and I think that that's going to give them a level of engagement that not normal leagues have some sort of disassociation with. I mean, there's so many opportunities for a fan to engage. I've even found interest, like a lot of my fans are buying ownership stake in the team, which they're allowing, and a variety of things. That amount of involvement is like, I think where professional sports is going, to really make it about the fans. So I gleaned on. I thought it was a really cool, interesting thing, and I always loved football. I grew up in the Bay, a huge 49ers fan during the glory years, and so it was a cool way to extend beyond what I'm known for in basketball and do some more stuff in football. Eventually 2K is getting back into the football space too. So like that's a really exciting prospect. But it starts with a fan control football league, and getting to trash talk Quavo and some of my friends that are owners in sports is always something I look forward to. So it's been a really great experience.
It's been great to see. And the fans have really, like, if you follow on Twitter, guys, the fans have been getting really pumped up on making these play calls. I mean, who doesn't want to do that from behind their TV?
You know what, the coolest thing that they did was, two very cool things. They allowed the fans to pick all the rules that were always like a little suspect, right? Like, what's a catch? What constitutes a catch? Is it 1 foot down, 2 feet down? Extra points? What are the overtime rules? All of those were fan generated, and the fans nailed them. Like, all of those rules are so good. And then the second thing that they did that was really smart was as you level up, the more you engage with play calling, the more actual like specifics you get into the play calling, that you control it more than other people do. So if you're in there all the time, you're a higher level than somebody else. When you're in the beginning levels, you can call run or pass, and that's it. When you get to a higher level, you can actually pick specific plays, whether it's a fade route, post route, whatever. I think that level of like control has, and the differentiation beyond, like, if you're a more engaged consumer, you get more power. I think that's so cool. It makes so much sense.
Absolutely. Now, do you think we will see this in our pro leagues to an extent? And where do you see gaming? What is our experience going to be like in the next 10 to 15, 20 years when we're playing a game like 2K?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up. I mean, I think about like where sports are going, and there's a lot of interest in health and safety, and this is a way to kind of deal with that. That was kind of like the forward thinking that I had about a league like this. A lot of these leagues are trying to get fans more involved. The MLB does stuff all the time. The NBA with their fan voting and some of that stuff, like what they did at All-Star last year was so cool with the fourth quarter rules. Like they're gonna have to figure out ways where you engage the product for the entire four quarters in the case of basketball and football, for the entire game. And so these mechanisms to present these opportunities to engage throughout the product, I think is going to be something that you're going to see throughout sports. And I was excited about the FCF because I was like, they're ahead of this stuff, like they're definitely thinking about how important the fan is to their product.
Yeah. And I think that something that you understand more than, even some of the heads of these pro sports leagues you just referenced is these things right here have become the enemy to the attention span at
100%
watching a game. You understand that though, you make a product that people are 100% engaged in while they're in it. So have you been, do people in the leagues, have they reached out to you? Have they ever, consulted with you yet about that, the attention span of the fan?
Not about the attention span. I've been consulted about roster construction and things like that, based on how we deal with that at 2K. But I hope that's some forward-facing owners start thinking about that, because it's a very real problem. I always talk about 2K's competition. 2K's competition isn't what you would think. 2K's competition is other forms of entertainment, right? Like, what is your mind share? We're not going after your video game time. We're going after all your entertainment time. So we want to make sure that we're giving you all the opportunities to engage us on every platform, including that cell phone that you were just holding up. So that's a very important thing with our business model. And hopefully, all the leagues, all entertainment devices, that's going to be the next big race, in my opinion. That's what they're going to be going after.
So, to all the kids watching this, kids that admire you, want to walk the path that you've really trailblazed here, what's a piece of advice you give to the young guys, young guys and girls, middle school, high school, that admire you and want to do something similar to you when they grow up?
Well, so like the biggest thing I always say is when I went to high school, the career that I now have was not even fathomable, right? Like there was no social media, influencer marketing was far off. Like and that's probably why I struggled to find like an interest in my career that I was like, this is what I want to do for sure. I just knew it was in sports, and I was really passionate about it, and I would never say no. Like I just went for it whenever it came to sports. Angered my parents a lot along the way, but whatever you believe in, you can find a career doing anything. I feel like I'm a pretty good testament to that, and that means like always stay passionate, work really hard, and maybe your career will find you instead of you finding your career. It might not exist yet, is I guess what I'm saying. Just like my career didn't exist when I was coming up. So that's the advice that I'd give people is don't get like down about not having your perfect career out there. I mentor a lot of kids. I've done a lot of stuff, recently, and they always want to be, I want to be the next YouTuber. I want to be in esports. Right. And the thing about that is like, that is a very new career, right? Like, it's just really kind of become interesting in the last 5 years. I want people to think about like, what is the next layer of that? What's the next level of influencer? So I think somebody will figure it out, and they'll be very successful doing that.
Well, we know who figured it out this generation, ladies and gentlemen, and that is Ronnie Singh. Guys, be sure to follow Ronnie on Twitter at Ronnie2K. Ronnie, thank you for everything you do, man. We'll be rooting for you. And congratulations on the Fan Control Football League.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to see the development of that. And I'm so glad to be working more on football, that's for sure.
Absolutely. 2K, we're ready for 2K's football, guys.